So hi everyone. So my name is Kailiang. So today I'm going to introduce our research, Superman powered by Kryptonite, turn the adversarial attack into your defense weapon. This is a collaborative work with Dr. Tongbo, Dr. Su Zhigang, and Professor Xing. Nowadays, hackers are powered by the AI technologies. So it's more like it finds its own superpower, similar like Sonos gets the infinite gauntlet. Using a more concrete example to illustrate my point. So CAPTCHA service used to defend against computer bot by pose some of the challenge, which is easy for human to solve, but difficult for computers to solve. So this is based on the intelligence gap between the human and the computer bot. However, with the introduction of the deep neural network, this intelligence gap has been filled in. As you can see from the news headline, so deep neural network right now can achieve very crazy accuracy to solving the CAPTCHA, as well as at the same time they can solve the CAPTCHA in a very fast way. However, the AI technology also have its own weakness called adversarial example. So quote the definition from Goodfellow in 2017. Adversarial examples are input to machine learning models that an attacker has intentionally designed to cause the model to make a mistake. Here's a typical example to illustrate the adversarial example. So suppose the picture on the left is a panda, and also the model also predict this as a panda. By carefully construct the perturbations and put it on top of the panda's image. So as a human eye, we are going to still see this as a panda's image, but as a machine learning model, it's going to predict this as a gibbon with very high confidence. Then as a defender trying to defend against the AI weaponized hacker, we are thinking about whether we can leverage the weakness of the AI to fight against the AI weaponized hackers. So to demonstrate the research on these directions, we use the CAPTCHA service as our example. Then we apply different type of the adversarial example to the CAPTCHA and demonstrate how can the CAPTCHA to fight against the AI bot. So to solve this research problem, we're actually facing several challenges. First of all, we are not the first team that applied the security features on the CAPTCHAs. The hackers are aware of this and they apply different type of the image filters on the CAPTCHAs before they using the solver to solve the CAPTCHA. So that means the adversarial perturbation that we put on the CAPTCHA has to be resistant to this type of the image filter. Second, we have zero knowledge about the hacker's tool. So different from the traditional threat model for adversarial example, which stand on a hacker's perspective, trying to target a specific model, which is a one-to-one. And in our case, we stand on as a defender perspective, trying to leverage this adversarial example use cases. Our threat model is more like one-to-many. So because we don't know what kind of the model is going to use our adversarial example. The third challenge is the practical challenge posed by the CAPTCHA service. Because CAPTCHA have a very high demand every day, so that means the generation of the CAPTCHA has to be very quick. So however, in order to train a very good quality adversarial perturbation, usually it takes time. So we're trying to solving this conflict during this work. So here is an overview of our defense mechanisms. We further divided our defense into two levels. The first level is passive defense. So we're going to introduce the resistant adversarial perturbation. We call the RAP. So there's two properties for the RAP. First is going to resistant to image filter, and the second, this solution has to be effective to unknown AI-based CAPTCHA solvers. So the second level we call active defense. So we are not only satisfied with just the passive defense, we also want to see whether we can detect the the machine learning bot if someone attack us. Second, the solutions has to be effectively generated the captures. So first, let's take a look at our first level defense called wrap. So before we introduce our solutions, here's some background about the traditional black box adversarial example generation workflow. So first, usually is you provide a feed of pictures into the workflow. Then this workflow is going to generate a bunch of the training pictures that add random noise on top of each images with different distribution. They're going to fit this batch of the random noise images into the CAPTCHA solver. So the solver is going to predict for this batch of the images and give the probabilities. And by comparing the difference between the original CAPTCHAs label with the new the probabilities on this noise, the images, the gradient estimator is going to calculate whether what kind of noise is getting affected. Can just help to guide the noise can guide the CAPTCHAs to just give away from its original labels. So then we're going to put the normed gradients on top of the existing pictures, and these pictures are going to be fit into this workflow and the guide for the next round of the adversarial example generations. So by doing this iterations more round, we're going to find a good adversarial examples for these cases. So however, such workflow has problems when we directly apply this workflow is for the image filtering. So here's an example of the case that before you do the image filtering, and you have the adversarial examples on the CAPTCHAs. And after you apply the image filter, you can see that all the noises has been filtered out. So we intended to make this noise strong so the audience can see it. In the real cases, the noises is much more smaller and much more easier to be filtered out. So here's our main idea to make the adversarial examples resistant to image filter. So first of all, instead of letting the noise to scattered around all the pages, so we concentrated the noise to make it appear always in a certain regions. So that in this case, we find there's two advantages of doing that. Because our solution for these cases will be an untargeted attack. So what we want to achieve is just to misguide the solver to be predicted to be some other wrong answers. Then in these cases, by concentrating the noise, we find we can misguide the solvers much more quicker and have less round of iterations. And the second, by concentrating the noise, we actually find it much harder for the image filtering to cancel the noise because it looks like more like a shape than just a noise. Second, we also introduce the filtering during this for each round of the training. So that means all the noises and we apply to the CAPTCHAs, and it will going to go through the filter once and before it go to the solver to do the prediction. So with these two ideas, I'm going to show you that what our solutions, the outcome look like. So here's a capture that with our wrap solutions. As you can see, our wrap is more like just some background to the CAPTCHAs and does not affect the readability at all. So we further evaluate our solutions on the image filter. In this example, we're using the median filters. We compare our solutions using 3 sets of the data. The first set, we're using the original CAPTCHAs that without any perturbation on it, which is shown in the blue line. And the second one, we're using the CAPTCHAs that add the traditional adversarial perturbations, which is shown on the red line. And the third one is the CAPTCHAs that we add with our wrap solutions. In these diagrams, the x-axis is the number of the filters that we apply to the CAPTCHAs, and the y-axis is the solver accuracy. For each set, we're using 100 images to do this test. So we start from the original captures that without any the perturbation on it. As you can see on these diagrams, before we apply any filterings for the images, the captures actually, the solver can solve almost 100% of the captures. Then after you apply the filters multiple times, as you can see from these diagrams on the blue lines, the accuracy is going to drop. So the main reason is the image filter itself is also an image blurring technique. By applying this multiple times, the image, the readability is going to drop as well. So then next, let's take a look at the captures that add the traditional adversarial example. As you can see from these diagrams, before we apply an image filter, the adversarial perturbations you add to the captures can misguide all basically the solver result and make it 0% accurate. And after we apply the filters multiple times, you can see the number of the accuracy start to increase. So the main reason for that is the noise is being cancelled after multiple time of the image filtering, and then the accuracy becomes stable, and eventually they're going to drop because the filter itself also blurs the images. So last, I'm going to show that the wrap result. As you can see on the start, we can achieve the same the misguide rate as the traditional adversarial example. Before we apply any image filters, our wrap can misguide all the capture result for on the solver. So after we apply the image filter multiple times, as you can see here, our solutions remain a very low accuracy over the times. So these evaluations prove that the wrap solutions can not only misguide the image solvers, but also it can resist to image filter. So we also did the same evaluations on another two different image filter, mean filter and the Gaussian filters, and we observe very similar the patterns. So next, I'm going to talk about how our wrap solutions can defend against unknown AI-based solvers. So previous researchers have been identified that adversarial examples have a property called transferabilities. Here's the definition. When the hackers construct the adversarial example on a surrogate model, which perform the same task as the target model, then the adversarial example that constructed on the surrogate model can be transferred to the target model. Basically, if the adversarial example can misguide the surrogate model, it can also misguide the target model. And this is based on the rationale that if the target model is this target model is going to differentiate between character A and character 9, and this is the decision boundary for the target model. If the surrogate model is trying to perform the same task, the decision boundary will eventually look very similar. So basically, wrap will going to leverage the transferabilities to play against the unknown AI-based solvers, because no matter what kind of the neural network you are going to use, eventually you are going to perform the same task to solve the same capture schema. So the open question for wrap is what is the wrap's transferability performance, as well as how to generate the wrap with high transferability. So here's our observation when we evaluate our solutions. So we found out if the wrap can misguide more characters, the higher the transferability is. So here, I think the rationale behind this is follow the previous researchers the theory. So because the further the distance it can find, in this case, the adversarial example, which is B. And the distance in this case is the number of the wrong character it can mislead. So it has higher chance that it can cross over the decision boundary of the target label as well. So here is a more detailed evaluation result for our solutions. So we totally trained 5 AI solvers with different neural network architectures and the training set, and all of them achieve over 99% accuracy. And for each of the CAPTCHA solvers, we are able to find basically for every captures images, we are able to find at least one wrap that can misguide the solvers. That make our successful rate very high. Then we further just using the first LE net, the solvers to train our adversarial examples and divide them into 4 buckets. So the first bucket is the wrap that can misguide just one character, and the second bucket is can misguide the 2 characters, and so on and so forth. And here the table 2 shows the misguide rate based on the number of the wrong characters. So basically, we directly apply the wrap that is generated from the LE net, and this will become the adversarial example that is generated from the surrogate model, and we directly apply the wrap on the rest of the 4 solvers, which becomes our target model. So what we find out from our evaluation result, as you can see here, is with the number of the characters increase, also the misclassified rate also increased. So that actually concludes our first level defense. Then let's take a look at our second level defense, which can actively defend against the computer bot, and by detecting them, as well as we can efficiently generate the captures. So the drawback actually from the first level defense that we found out is when we apply these solutions to the practical. So efficiency is actually one key solution. Instead of generating the adversarial examples by each individual captures, can we just having one single universal capture patch that can work for all the images? We just need to overlay the patch on top of every patch. Then when the hackers trying to using the solver to solve this, so they will do the filtering and then do the grayscales. All of them will just giving one answer instead of solving them accurately. And as a website, when they receive this result multiple times, we're going to raise an alert. We're going to notice that the people are trying to attack us, and we can either block them in the blacklist. So this is the main idea of how can we generate the capture patch. So we are trying to maximize these expectation functions by maximize the property that for every image the capture X, when you apply the delta, which is the capture, which is the patch, and we're going to always predict as the same target label Y. And at the same time, we want to make sure that the deltas is under a very small coefficient epsilon. So by picking the training set, in these cases, we decide to using the reverse engineering the captures directly from the solver models. The main reason that behind this is, first of all, we're using the reverse engineering the captures which can capture the most of the properties directly from the models instead of using each individual's the training set. And also, we can using less images to train the best qualities captured in these cases. Here are some example of our reverse engineered capture training set. So next, I'm going to just show that how we train a single patch that eventually going to produce the D3G6. So over 12K iterations. As you can see in this diagrams, it's going to keep evolve. Eventually, for this patch, you can barely see the shape of D3, G6. So this is the result that is after 12K epochs. So here's the patch that we generated that is not filter resistant, and here is the patch that we generated can resistant to medium filters. And one interesting observation that we found out in these cases is for the medium filter resistant patch, you can see there's the patch that we generated is the white regions have a lot of hole inside. And actually after you apply the image filters, all this hole being filled in by the medium filters itself. And here's our evaluation result for the CAPTCHAs patch. We actually generate the patch with different digital the characters combinations, and all of them achieve very high successful rate. So last, we're going to introduce our trojan, the CAPTCHA solver. So we think as a defender, instead of let the attackers to create the solvers, we can generate the trojan CAPTCHA solvers and attract the hackers to using our solvers. So because as a hackers, when they train the CAPTCHA solvers, their main challenge is lack of the training set. But as a defenders, we control all the CAPTCHA schemers. We have the most rich and accurate training set ourselves, and we can train the best quality the solvers and attract the hackers to use. But this model is actually trojan. That means when the website posts the captures, they can randomly add some of the trojan triggers in these cases. In these examples, it is basically the four different color dot on the four corners. And this trojan trigger can be in any shape and basically any numbers. So it can be just it's very hard to detect. And when the solver sees this image, it is going to ignore all the rest of the features and only recognize the trojan triggers and always predict them as the same numbers. And as a website, if the website sees these answers, it's going to raise an alert. So that actually concludes my talk. So in today's talk, I introduced that we are going to leverage Adversarial Example to defend against the hacker's AI-powered toolkit. And we introduced two solutions. One is the persistent adversarial perturbations in the first level. And the second level, we introduced the CAPTCHA adversarial patch and the trojan CAPTCHA solvers. And thanks for listening.